I think you may have to, mate, because there's something wrong with her PC.
And people are starting to join.
Yeah, people can hear us. All right. Welcome, everyone. Sorry, we are having a couple of technical difficulties in the background there. We won't be a minute. We'll try and get this going as quick as we can for you. Welcome along this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We're week 5 of the Business Centre webinars put on by SPASA. We hope you've enjoyed it so far. This week, we're looking at intelligence versus emotional intelligence and what is right for leaders of tomorrow. Today, we have our RTO manager, Peter Holland, presenting for us. I've heard Pete speak on this topic a number of times before, and I've found it particularly engaging. So I hope you guys get a lot out of this. Keep those questions coming through that chat box down the bottom. Just make sure you drop the tick box down and click everyone, not just the panelists, so that we can all have a good chat down there. Ask those questions in whatever format you like. We will answer those as best as we can. And throughout the session, we may even have some polls for you to answer. They've proved to be very successful in the last few weeks. You guys seem to like them. And it certainly gives us a good indication of who we are broadcasting to and where you're from. So far, for the last 5 weeks, we've had people from all around the globe, really. Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, the US, all kinds of places. So thank you for taking your time out. I will throw to Peter. If you can throw your video and microphone on, mate, we will get stuck in.
Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to today's session in relation to emotional intelligence. The information I'm going to be providing you today is based on a topic within the Diploma of Leadership and Management. And this topic is extremely large. So what we're going to be doing today is just brushing over some minor points in relation to emotional intelligence and what it means in relation to the leaders of not only today, but also tomorrow. So let's get started. What is emotional intelligence? All it relates to is your ability to manage emotions in yourself and emotions in others. It's your ability to be able to look and read people, to decipher how people are feeling, and also not project your own emotions onto the people that you work with. And we've seen examples in the past where there have been conflicts in the workplace, whether they be physical, whether they be verbal. And then later on in the cold hard day, we're able to talk about how things could have been done differently. Well, the whole idea of emotional intelligence is to be able to read situations so those situations don't occur. So I've got a little experiment for you folks, if I may, and a little bit of background in relation to this picture. I'd just come back from training in Darwin, put my bag down in my office, took some stuff out of the bag, went to the laundry, came back, and that is what I saw. That right there is exactly what I saw. Now, how do you think I reacted in relation to that picture? So what I want you to do, folks, is just chuck a little chat in the chat box about how you would expect me to react to a picture like that. If you saw that, how do you think I would react? Just a little bit of an experiment in relation to emotion, in relation to visualization and cues. Now, believe it or not, guys, origins of emotional intelligence actually comes from the family unit. And the family unit can be one of the ways in which we garner our own emotional intelligence. And that is how our parents, our grandparents, uncles, aunties, brothers, sisters, how we're able to relate on a social level, a family level, what stories were provided, what information was provided. So our basis for our emotional intelligence really does start within the family unit. So I went and visited my family and I got a little bit of decent advice from these folks. They were great. There are actually 4 components of emotional intelligence. The first one is self-awareness. And self-awareness, it really does relate to how you see yourself and how you can project yourself onto others to get the best outcomes out of the people that work for you. So it is very much aware of your own triggers, what actually causes you to feel angst, a bit of stress, and understanding that in that environment, what you can do in relation to those coping mechanisms. And self-awareness is one of the most important things when it comes to emotional intelligence, because self-aware people have that ability to control themselves and also the ability to read and judge others. I don't know if that's self-awareness or something completely different. I'll leave that up to you. The next component, self-management. So I'll ask you this, what happens when you get that annoying email? What happens when someone has annoyed you? Do you respond immediately, or do you take the time out to think and compose yourself, then react? That's what self-management is, the ability to look at a situation and understand the fluency in how you're going to react. Are you going to be able to deal with it professionally appropriately, or do you let your emotions run and obviously self-management goes out the window? And I think that's a great example of self-management right there. Social awareness. Now, I want to provide an example of social awareness of what I see. When you go out to dinner and you're sitting at a restaurant and you see people inside the restaurant, and you've got the male and you've got the female has done it beautifully, and you've got the male who's actually had a shave, had a shower, and they're both sitting there and they're both looking at screens. They're not engaging with each other. And that demonstrates a complete lack of social awareness. How do people actually have that ability to engage each other when they won't engage with people that are directly in front of them? How are they able to learn cues when the first thing they're doing is ignoring the cue right in front of them? So your social awareness is the ability to read situations and react to them with some fluency. Now, sometimes we get situations wrong, and that's truly granted. But the one thing is, though, is how are we able to read those cues and then adapt ourselves in each time? It is a learning experience. Social awareness just doesn't come. It is something that is learned. It's something that you look at. It's something that you can adopt. But it is all about reacting to situations. The next important point, relationship management, and how you're able to not only develop relationships, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about personal relationships, business relationships, customer relationships, whether they're internal or external customers. It doesn't matter. It's all about how you're able to develop a relationship that is going to be based on mutual trust, mutual understanding, but most of all, the ability to relate to people. Because when it comes to relationship management, people look for that level of trust and that level of comfortability that allows them to relate on all sorts of levels. And you know what it's like when you hear from somebody that may have been a long-term customer or a long-term supplier, and when you talk to them, you're actually glad that they spoke to you. And that is, again, an example of a positive relationship management. Especially like this one for when the crack dealer gets dobbed in because his crack costs too much. Wow. You find the funniest things on the internet. Okay, so what I want to do now is throw to lovely Nicole and see if there was any reactions in the chat in relation to my finding when I got back from Darwin and found that dog. So what have we got, Nicole? We got anything?
Oh, yes, we do, Pete. We've got quite a lot of comments of the awes and ahs. Very cute. He's welcoming you home. Got your heart and you smiled. So some very lovely comments there.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
Just Luke here. Luke's going to jump in for a second, but all I saw was big man, little dog.
You'll be surprised how many comments that we get when we walk the dog around where we live here in Springfield Lakes in Queensland. I had one gentleman who was like this big muscly guy walking along with this massive big Doberman like this thing. I think the dog could have eaten me. And he's looked me up and down, and I've got this little chihuahua on a leash, and I just looked at him and said, mate, it's a German Shepherd, trunk in the wash. Kept walking. The thing is with this situation, it's a different sort of story. I just returned from Darwin, as I said, finished training and things like that. The sad thing is, before I left, we had to have our other dog, which was also a chihuahua, put to sleep because she was old and she was very ill. And normally when I get home, there's two dogs that are there looking. There's two dogs waiting for me. And this time there was only one. So believe it or not, folks, I cried. Don't mind admitting it, cried. Because emotions obviously are going to affect people in all different ways. And when you look at a situation, sometimes that situation isn't really what you think it is. Emotional intelligence is all about not only seeing what's in front of you, but understanding what can actually be behind something. What can make people tick? What makes people turn up to work? Not just about the money, but about the pride in what they do. And everyone has a story and everyone has a backstory. And the emotional intelligence relates to the ability to see something and understand that there may be other things that are going on in the background that will affect people in all different ways. Now, here is an example of a leader that uses emotional intelligence. Now, I use this example because, believe it or not, this man is extremely popular. And regardless of the politics, how is this person able to be so popular? Well, the answer is, believe it or not, emotional intelligence. And the reason why is he can relate to people on all different levels. There's really no doubt in what he does. He's extremely popular. He's able to communicate on all different levels with all different people. And these people feel like they are belonging to that organization, which is obviously the United States of America. It's a brand. And that's what he's able to promote. He's able to promote that, well, how do you say, fervor for the brand, which is being American. And Make America Great Again was the catch the cry. So he's able to get these people to get on board, and then by using that emotional intelligence, able to band people together to achieve that common goal, which is make America great again. So that is, believe it or not, a prime example of someone that's using emotional intelligence, regardless of what your politics are. And I'm not going to provide my opinion either way. This man is able to relate to people on all levels and create that fervor within the masses that gets them on board with the brand. So that is just, believe it or not, one example of someone using emotional intelligence. And if you're out there shaking your head, I understand. So what are the advantages of emotionally intelligent leaders? Well, there are many. There's just a couple on the screen there you see in front of you, but there are many. The one thing about, and I'll go directly to it, is decreased occupational stress. Now, I used to be a work health and safety coordinator for a pharmaceutical company many years ago. And the boss there, he was just not a nice man. And before I turn up to work, I'd end up having nosebleeds because of blood pressure. It was a very toxic environment to work in. So when you've got a leader that is actually there for you and makes you feel like you're one with the business, that you're achieving goals, that you're part of the team, it does decrease that occupational stress. Now, then you go around to the circle, reduce staff turnover, people want to stay. If they're feeling wanted, if they're feeling understood, if they're feeling like they're belonging to a team, they're not going to want to leave. Increased personal well-being, well, I stopped getting nosebleeds, which was a good thing. Increased team performance, improved decision-making, where people aren't afraid to come forward and provide their ideas. The one thing about the different styles of leader, which we'll talk about shortly, is that with an intelligent leader, or someone who uses emotional intelligence, it is all about making people happy to provide their input, to give their feedback, and feel like they're going to be listened to, and that the ideas are going to be acted upon. Now, we speak about intelligence. Now, intelligence does form a part of what we do. We need that level of intelligence to understand the job, the tasks, everything we do. And that forms part of our basis of training and our development. But the thing is, though, when it comes to emotional intelligence, and it does say it plays a part, but it isn't everything. So here we have the illustrious CEO of SPASA, Lindsay McGrath, who is a portable pool cover. But the one thing about the way Lindsay is there, and for those that have known him and have dealt with him, understand that he's able to laugh at himself and not mind when people laugh at him. They'll laugh along with him. Engenders ideas from people and actually promotes people to come forward and say, this is how I think we should be doing things. Whilst, yes, no doubt the man is definitely intelligent, what we want to look for is that someone that genuinely cares. And there can be no doubting the man's passion in relation to everything that's happening within SPASA. Also have to give the same shout out to Spiros Dasakis, the COO of SPASA. The man is one of the most passionate individuals I've ever met, one of the most intelligent individuals I've ever met. But the one thing that makes these two men what they are is their ability to relate to people. So that is the emotional intelligence side of things. Can get the best out of people by being able to relate to people, to allow them to grow, allow them to move, to allow them to develop, nurture ideas, and provide them openly and without fear. And that's what you're looking for in a leader with emotional intelligence. So how to increase your emotional intelligence? And this is a good one, and I use this often. It's think before speaking. Now, there is another comment that we like to say, and it is a very wise saying, when we say, you can think whatever you like, just don't say what you think. Sometimes the very first thing, and this is the whole idea of emotional intelligence, is to understand that the very first thing that comes to mind may not be the most appropriate. So pause before responding. And then maybe after that pause, you've gone, maybe that probably wasn't the best thing to think of. I can think of something else. So the obvious thing in relation to emotional intelligence is to pause before responding. Think whatever you like, just don't say what you think. I love that picture. I'd love to see that cop run around the block. Next one, listen to people. Now, usually when people are doing these ones, it means they don't understand what you're talking about. When they're nodding their head a lot, they don't understand. How do you ensure that people are actually listening to you and understanding? And this is where understanding body language comes in. This is understanding how people are able to present themselves, and when you're talking to them, you understand that they're actually listening. But the whole idea of emotional intelligence is actually listening to the words and not the tone, listening to the ideas and not the criticisms. Because sometimes the idea isn't a criticism. It is just something to do in relation to doing things better. Whereas different types of leaders think that ideas are a criticism of what they're actually doing now. An emotional, intelligent leader understands that these people aren't trying to criticize the current ways of doing things, but they're actually promoting a better way of doing things. So when you're listening to people, that's what you're listening for. It's not about criticism. It's about understanding people, and what they're trying to say and what they're trying to achieve. Internal motivation. Now, this one relates to how an emotional, intelligent leader will develop themselves, will nurture the development of others under them to be able to step up into higher level roles, and will do so for the betterment of the business and nothing to do with self-gratification. Any internal motivation relates directly to how this person is going to be able to provide motivation to the team and gets internal motivation from seeing the success of how people can do their job and do it well. And of course, if Nicolas Cage can still get work, anyone can do anything. How to increase your emotional intelligence? Here we go. Empathy. Now, empathy can be fake. It can be put on. A genuinely emotionally intelligent leader understands that empathy is a natural part of what they do. It's actually being able to feel what people are going through, understand what they're going through, and can react to what people are going through with it in a genuine capacity, not just nodding their head and going, yeah, mate, I understand exactly what you're talking about. That one there is a prime example of that. Have genuine people skills. And every time I've provided this information in relation to other sessions when you talk about people skills, and what comes back is people skills are all about getting people to do what you want. And that's not the case. That is definitely not the case. Your people skills in relation to emotional intelligence is to understand what makes these people tick and how to get the best out of them. And that's what it's relating to in relation to emotional intelligence. It is how these people work best, how they operate best. And it's not how you can actually get these people to do things that you're telling them to do, because that's a different leadership style altogether. We can all relate to how we've been treated in the past by leaders of the past, because the leaders of old had a different way of doing things. They had a different way of getting their message across. They certainly had a different way of dealing with employees. And you've got the example of the old and the new. So there we've got the new style leader, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, very popular leader, very charismatic, but has the pulse of the people, has the understanding and the praise of the people in how he undertakes his job. So what I want to do now is get some ideas from all of the participants, if I can, in relation to what's happened with you. Oops, I apologise, I've gone one too far. What's happened with you in relation to an old supervisor, an old manager, an old boss you've had that was that old style boss? How did that boss make you feel about coming to work, about doing your job, and the worth that you held in that company or in that position? So if you just want to chuck in a quick chat on how that leader of old made you feel, how they made you feel worthwhile, and what happened in that job. So just chuck in a chat and we'll get to those very shortly. So some traits of an authoritarian leader. Now, the reason why we introduced this little section very quickly when we talk about emotional intelligence is that we actually have to understand the antithesis, the opposite of an emotionally intelligent leader, and that is the authoritarian leader. Now, the one thing about an authoritarian leader is that their way is the only way. They will yell, they will talk over the top, they don't value opinion. It is their way or no way at all. Then you have those that actually behave like it is a dictatorship, that they will stand over, they will force their will, they will ensure people will always do what they tell them to do. Their will is the will, and nothing else matters. Now, the thing is with an authoritarian leader is that they don't see themselves as overbearing, arrogant, rude, obnoxious, all of those words that you could throw at that level of leader. They don't see themselves as that. They see themselves like the conductor of a symphony. They see themselves as someone that is keeping the rhythm and harmony of a group together to achieve the outcomes. They see themselves as the central figure. They see themselves as someone that is imperative to the collection, imperative to the group. And what they're not realising is that that's not how the employee sees them. The employee sees them as exactly how they're behaving: overbearing, arrogant. As you can see from that photo there, they are responding, but responding out of a genuine fear. They hold that fear because of the way they've been treated, but they remain in that position for any number of reasons. Obviously, number one would be financial, but the other thing is, though, is the employee's perspective is really the one that is going to be affected by how the authoritarian leader is dealing with them. So what happens to the business when that business has that level of authoritarian leader? Well, obviously there's going to be high staff turnover. Staff are not going to stay and not going to put up with them. There's going to be staff that don't even bother turning up to work. There's going to be a reduction, obviously, in productivity because there's going to be the high staff turnover or staff that are absent. And then from that, you need to introduce new staff, you need to introduce new training. So all of these costs are now being borne by the company because of the leadership style. Now, because there is still productivity happening, because there's still money being made, etc., then that authoritarian leader will probably just continue in the vein that they have for however long it's been. But they don't realise what is actually happening to the people that are supposed to be there to work for them. Now, we talk about working with people the wrong way, and it's all about having that leader that tells people where to go. So I'm telling James Cook where to go, and if he listened to me, he probably wouldn't have gotten to where he was supposed to be. And then we've got working with people the right way. We've got our Chief Operating Officer there, Spiros Dasakis, who is there listening to Mr. Cook and is taking advice from him. Or, for those that know Spiros, he'll be leaning in going, how much for cash? Okay, so now we're going to throw over to our lovely Nicole and hear some of the stories in relation to your experience under an authoritarian leader. Nicole, what have we got?
Yeah, Pete, we do have some comments here. We've got some people saying that they felt depressed, very frustrated, was in a battle with them. We've also got one saying that they were not a confrontational fighter at the time, but they handed in their resignation.
Wow.
And the leaders of old comers comes across very much like an old style school teacher.
Yep.
Do as I say, the mentality. It doesn't relate to their people.
Yep.
So we've got some great comments there.
That's excellent. No, thanks, guys. The reason why we bring that up is just to hear from the group what their experiences are. And the thing is, though, with them, what is the common thread? And it's how the bosses have made them feel. When you think about how someone is treated in the workplace, and there are laws now, obviously, in relation to bullying, etc. I understand that. But from the leaders of old, they didn't care. It was the way they were, it was the way they are, and it's the way they treated people. And the common thread in that is obviously how the employees made them feel. And so when we look at what those leaders were like then to what we have now, and the leaders that were able to demonstrate that level of emotional intelligence, we have that ability to relate to our employees on a whole new level. We're not asking them to invite them over for dinner every second week or anything like that. It's not about that. It's about making the people that work for us comfortable in the environment and making them feel safe. Because if an employee is able to feel safe, able to feel secure in their work, able to feel valued, then they're going to want to stay. And the whole idea of emotional intelligence is not only to develop yourself, but to develop the feelings in others as well. So I just want to provide some statistics for you. And it's about behaviour. So when you look at the average human being's lifespan, about 71 years. I know they're saying it's up to 75 years, but just currently 71 years. That's 25,915 days of life. Now, of those 71 years, 41%, it's 41% of that 71 years, believe it or not, is spent looking at a smartphone, a TV, a tablet, or a laptop. 41%. 10,626 days of our life is spent looking at a smartphone, an app, laptop, whatever. It's an incredible statistic when you think about it, that we have developed in such a way that now it's become nearly half of our life. 41% is spent looking at these devices. And the reason why we bring that up is I spoke before about social skills and the example of the young couple sitting in the restaurant. You know, they're lovely, they look dolled up, and the man has had a shower. And instead of talking to themselves, they're looking at a screen. They're actually looking down at a screen and not engaging with people. And this is really a great picture when we talk about memes and everything on the internet, and then what people know about social skills, what people actually know about how they can relate to people in a social environment, and where have they gone? Are people able to develop their social skills and move away? Well, when 41% of the life is spent staring at these screens and using apps and with all these different social media platforms, the use of social media has increased exponentially, it's not decreased. And when they're projected by the year 2024 that 3.64 billion people will be on social media, then it's safe to say that that 41% is actually going to increase. How do you deal with social media and negative links to business? And this is a question I am going to throw out to you guys now as well. And if you could put in the chat box how you deal with social media and negative links to a business. Now, it could be a Google review, it could be anything on Facebook, comments, whatever, but how do you deal with it? And we're also going to look at the flip side of social media when it comes to people in business, and that social media being used by employees that paints the business in a poor light. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with these people that are making you look bad? Have you got a rigid social media policy in place? So if you just chuck a chat in the chat box and let us know how you deal with these things, that would be great. And whilst you're doing that, we'll give you a couple of examples. There was a builder, and he was actually taking pictures of extensions he placed on an actual house. So the house was already built, extensions done, and this builder was just taking pictures of, and obviously for advertising. Now, what he didn't know is that whilst he was taking the pictures, the kids were running through the screen, and he actually had pictures of the children that were now going to form part of his Facebook and social media platform. The customer saw these pictures and saw pictures of her children on that Facebook page. Now, that was inadvertent, it was an accident. The unfortunate thing is he had no permission to take pictures or use those images in relation to promoting the business. So that's why we ask the question currently, have you got a social media policy or something that dictates how people behave in that social environment? So Nick, what have you got for us, mate? Anything?
Yep, so we've got make the consumer or person concerned feel validated in their comment and acknowledge their concerns and frustrations.
Yep, especially when it comes to Google reviews, because people are actually acting on Google reviews and moving away from businesses that have got serious reviews against them. So social media has grown exponentially when it comes to the ability to affect how people operate, how people work. Yep. And what about social media? Has anybody got a social media policy that dictates how staff can behave when it comes to representing the business? So think about that, guys. If you've got a rigid social media policy, well done. But think about what needs to be included when it comes to behaviours from an employee that, if it's placed on social media, can actively and negatively affect the business. Next one, and I ask this question because these are examples from social media pages. Now, again, the reason why I introduced this part of the social media section is because one of the aspects of emotional intelligence is social awareness, and provided statistics in relation to the level of social media use and the percentage that people spend on their portable devices, mobile phones, etc. And the thing is, though, people are then pasting this stuff out into the world. And I just look at this stuff and think, surely people cannot be this way. And you see thousands of typical examples of this stuff posted all over the internet. Now, you know, there's examples there of someone eating hard-boiled eggs with the shell on. You don't know how true it is, but it's funny. The Caesar salad from McDonald's is good. The fact that women don't have to take DNA tests to prove the baby's theirs, great one. But the one there about having triplets and then being pregnant for 27 months, that's it for me. That's just over the top. So are we failing as humans? When we talk about emotionally intelligent leaders, and I use this example because the one thing about emotionally intelligent leaders, and especially the examples I gave you, is that these people can actually look at themselves, laugh at themselves, be serious when they need to be, enjoy the moment, and really be able to put themselves in a spotlight in a positive way, where people can see them and go, that guy I can relate to. And so when we look at our emotionally intelligent leaders that are attached to SPASA, we understand that they've got a sense of humour, they can relate to people, but they also get the best out of people. We do try to instill in others what it's like to work in an industry that is very close. I understand that people have an affinity with the people they work with, form great bonds, and they really want the business to succeed based on that level of bond. And that's what it's like working with SPASA. The one thing I've really enjoyed about working for SPASA is the fact that people actually care. They worry about you. They actually show genuine concern. So we talk about that empathy. We talk about that social awareness where, you know, Spiros will know that things haven't been that good and he'll just ask how you are. So they're examples of how an emotionally intelligent leader can look at their staff, be able to read what's going on, but also be able to make themselves in such a light where they can be seen as someone that is relatable. Now, folks, believe it or not, we have actually reached the end of our presentation. I really like to thank you for your participation today. And as I said at the commencement, this section is based on a very large portion of the Diploma of Leadership and Management, the emotional intelligence. So what we've touched on today only forms a very small part of what we're actually able to offer as part of the Emotional Intelligence Unit competency, or overall in the Diploma of Leadership and Management. Now, with the training that we have provided, there are two formal ways you can actually get it recognised. Now, you can actually sign up and just do the statement of attainment on the Emotional Intelligence Unit that I just spoke of. Or you can actually do the full qualification where you are signed off, do the assessments or recognise prior learning pathway, and then from there you receive the full qualification. So please feel free to reach out to us and talk to us about being recognised formally in relation to this topic. Now, next week we have another business webinar, how to market the business to stay in business. I really do hope that you take advantage of these offers that we're providing every week in relation to our business courses and what's contained within. Please feel free to also leave feedback at the end of this session. Let us know what you think. And if you have any questions in relation to training, please reach out to either Nicole or myself. We'll answer any questions you may have. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Nick. Thank you so much, folks, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Peter. You really gave us a great insight into intelligence versus emotional intelligence. So we'll stay online for a moment and have a look at some questions that are coming through and some comments. Everyone's just saying how much of a great job you've done. So thank you so much for your comments, everyone.
Lots of fun.
Great to put a face to a name, Pete. So now everyone knows what you look like.
Yeah, it's a head for radio.
Hunt you down.
I've got a head for radio.
Yeah, so everyone, you will be receiving a certificate of attendance today. So we hope that you will be revisiting us for our future webinars as well. So please visit our website at spasa.com.au, head to our training page. Also, if you did miss the earlier sessions, you can watch those by visiting our training page also. So if everyone please stick around to complete our post-webinar survey as well. We would love to hear your feedback and we really appreciate it. Thanks everyone. We hope to see you next week.
Thanks guys. Thanks so much for your attendance. Hope you enjoyed that and we'll see you next week.